Monday, October 29, from Babel to Pentecost. The days of spiritual preparation following Jesus' ascension culminated in the events of Pentecost. The first verse tells us that on the day just before the Holy Spirit was poured upon the disciples, they were all together of one accord in one place. Acts chapter 2 and verse 1. In the Old Testament, Pentecost was the second of three major feasts that every male Israelite was obliged to attend. It was held 50 days. In Greek, Pentecosta is 50th day after Passover. During that feast, the Hebrews presented to God the first fruits of their summer harvest as an offering of thanksgiving. It is likely also that by the time of Jesus, the Feast of Pentecost included a celebration of the giving of the law on Mount Sinai as well. Exodus 19 verse 1 reads, "On the first day of the third month after the Israelites left Egypt, on that very day they came to the desert of Sinai." Thus we see here the continued importance of God's law as part and parcel of the Christian message regarding Jesus, whose death offers everyone who repents forgiveness for their violation of God's law. No wonder one of the crucial texts regarding the last days deals with both the law and the gospel. Here is the patience of the saints, here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 14 verse 12. Also, with Mount Sinai, when Moses received the 10 Commandments, numerous extraordinary phenomena occurred at this Pentecost. Exodus chapter 19 verses 16 to 25 reads, "On the morning of the third day there were thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed out from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, 'Go down and warn the people so they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them.' Moses said to the Lord, 'The people cannot come up Mount Sinai because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy.' The Lord replied, 'Go down and bring Aaron up with you. But the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them.' So Moses went down to the people and told them." And Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 18, "You have not come to the mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm." Acts 2 verses 2 to 4 reads, "And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting. Then there appeared to them divided tongues as of fire, and one sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance." Question. Read Acts chapter 2, verses 5 through to 13. What is the significance of this amazing event? Now there were staying in Jerusalem God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment, because each one heard their own language being spoken. Utterly amazed, they asked, "Aren't all these who are speaking Galileans? Then how is it that each of us hears them in our native language? Parthians, Medes, and Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt and the parts of Libya near Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Jews and converts to Judaism, Cretans and Arabs, We hear them declaring the wonders of God in our own tongues. Amazed and perplexed, they asked one another, "What does this mean?" Some, however, made fun of them and said, "They've had too much wine." Pentecost was to be a joyous feast, a feast of thanksgiving to the Lord for his bounties. Here, perhaps, is the reason for the false accusation of drunkenness in verses 13 to 15. Some, however, made fun of them and said, "They have had too much wine." Then Peter stood up with the 11, raised his voice and addressed the crowd. "Fellow Jews, and all of you who live in Jerusalem, let me explain this to you. Listen carefully to what I say. These people are not drunk, as you suppose. It's only 9 in the morning. God's power especially is seen in the miracle of speaking and hearing in diverse tongues. Jews from all over the Roman Empire who came to Jerusalem for this feast heard the message of Jesus, the Messiah, in their own languages. In a unique way, Pentecost helps undo the dispersion of the original human family and the formation of ethnic groups which began in earnest at the Tower of Babel. The miracle of grace begins the reunifying of the human family. The unity of God's church on a global scale testifies to the nature of his kingdom as restoring what was lost at Babel.